Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us. I am Raymond Sharp. This is my lovely wife,
Tanesha Sharp.
and we're here to
Jump
jump in.
in.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of being on one accord in a relationship.
Yes.
One accord,
One accord.
being
On the
together,
same page.
same page. Not the same page where you're on the front of the page, I'm on the back of the page. We are
The
reading
reading
together
the same thing
at the same
at the
time.
same time.
And if we're off, we are taking time to make sure that things go accordingly.
To get back on the same page.
To get back on track. Because if you're not on the same page, you're off track. You're on two divergent paths, going two different places. And I think a lot of relationships begin to die because of the lack of correct communication. And I'm not going to say communication because we're always are communicating, even when we don't. Silence is a form of communication, and attitude is a form of communication. Body language, as we know, is a sign of communication. So we want to talk about correct communication and making sure that we are accurately and projecting what we expect so that we have positive corresponding movement and actions in the direction that we want to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
English major. No, I'm just playing. But no, I think it's so super important, especially if this is like a serious relationship. Like this is somebody that you want to be with for long term. It's important to learn how to get on the same page because when you get married, you're going to have to be on the same page. And if that's something that you can't do in a relationship, or at least work towards getting on the same page in a relationship, it's going to be extremely challenging and difficult once you get in a marriage. So starting to practice that while you're dating is very, very important. And so let's talk about what does that look like, getting on the same page. How do you do that? So just say, for instance, we're dating. How do we get on the same page? So I'm thinking one thing, you're thinking another thing. So we automatically identify that we're on two different pages, but how do we get on the same page? I would say first, really listening to the other person and really hearing their perspective, like really hearing them. And if it do make sense, it's kind of like, it's almost like I want to be right, so I'm going to hold on to my perspective, but really finding out whose perspective makes sense, like, or what perspective works best for us.
Right.
Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
that makes sense.
And so it can turn into, a back and forth thing, but really hearing the other person, because there's been times where my perspective was not, it was off and it was causing us not to be on the same page. It was my line of thinking. The way I looked at it and thought about it wasn't all the way like how it probably should have been or how it would work best for us. So when I really heard him, instead of wanting to like come back and prove my point and prove that I'm right and prove my perspective is better than your perspective, I really heard him. And then I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like, I'm going to put mine away. Let's go with yours. Because at the end of the day, we're on the same team and we want to win.
That's right.
Together. And so if we don't know how to put our stuff aside when it's not the best for us, it's almost like we both are coming up with what we think is the best for us to move forward. And you have to get on the same page when it comes to that. So even with your goals, getting on the same page, do we want the same things? I think it's very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say, speaking of goals, I think that some people, they don't correctly communicate why they even want to be in a relationship with you. And I think at the very beginning, you are not on the same page. Because let's say in one person's mind, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical, a man maybe said, man, she's nice to look at, I would love to take her on a few days to get to know her. And some women, when they start dating, they jump straight, I'm gonna marry him. I think this is it. When the guy's like, I just want to get to know you, and the girl has already moved to marriage. So how the approach of the relationship is going to be is completely different things. So the things that may offend a young lady is going to be different, because it's like, he didn't call me today, I don't know what his problem is, and he's just like, hey, this is, to me, I'm looking at this, I'm gonna slow myself into this is something casual. But she wants to kind of like, okay, I need to, what we got to do to kind of move this thing along. So your pace is completely off. He's on chapter 2
like,
and you're on chapter 10.
Where are we now? I used to be like that, honestly. Like, I always wanted to know where I stood. Like, where are we? I didn't never want to waste my time. And so, but I had to, hold back and give it some time to see if this is something that he wants. And before I start asking, so where are we? And so until I realized that this is something that I even want, like, like, do I want this? And so, because if I don't want this, I don't, we don't have to go anywhere, and it's okay if we're not going anywhere. But I think it's really important to start learning how to get on the same page. I guess when it gets to that point where you need to solidify, like, where are we right now? That's probably the very first time you really are getting on the same page,
That's
when you have that conversation.
that's fair.
And I remember having that conversation. I've had that conversation a whole lot prior to my husband. Um, and sometimes it was disappointing because like he said, most women, which was I was one of them, I would kind of not already be married to him, but like I can see it, and it gets exciting for a woman to finally see something good, see something that's different from what you had in the past, something that's healthy, that's that can provide a healthy relationship, that's very safe, that's very comforting, like, when you actually see the potential of somebody that you want to be with because of who they are, and you just get excited. He's fine, and you just get excited, so you want to automatically assume that you are the one that he wants to be with, but that's not always that's not always the case. But um getting on the same page. So once you have that initial conversation and you find out where you guys are, then from that point on, you try to stay on the same page.
Right. And I think even too, when you're looking at once you have that conversation, um, I think you also have to be mature and understand that, okay, once we have this conversation and we realize that what we both think where we think we are is off, where we think we're going is completely off, and there may not be any immediate hope that it's going to end up on the same page. You might want to consider ending that relationship. And that may sound harsh for some people, but what are you missing out on because you are holding on to something that clearly we're different expectations, we're moving in a different direction, and our future
That's
is
good.
completely off. So what else, what other reason, it's kind of like, if my wife would tell you, I will throw stuff away quick if it's not useful, it's gone. So with that, it's like,
Yeah.
what purpose does it serve in my life? Why is it taking up space and time? And why am I putting up with this if it doesn't have a designated purpose in my life?
And I had to learn that because, like I said, I would hold on to something because I wanted to give it time to change, but he never guaranteed it will change. He was more than likely clear about what he wanted, and but I will always like, as he's around me more, maybe he will want more. Maybe I can prove or show him that I can be what he wants and stuff like that. And none of that worked. Like, none of that ever worked. And I had to take it for what it was. And that was my mistake. Prior to meeting my husband, that was a big mistake that I made. So this is no knock on anybody. I can just say from my personal experience, I put myself in situations where things went way too long. I stayed in situations way too long when I should have been out of it, because he told me from the beginning, like, I just want to kind of get to know you. Let's just kind of take it slow. And then when we did get in a relationship, I don't need to be looking for no ring right away. I don't need to look for marriage. Give it time, to turn into what it needs to turn into. But it was no one never guaranteed me anything. Nobody never guaranteed me that true commitment of, like, marriage. Like, I see you as long term. And so that's where I'm coming from. No one really saw that in me until my husband, and which was probably good. I think God was not allowing people to see me like that, because I was never meant for them, and I was meant for him. And so that's okay. If they don't see anything in you, there's someone that does. And you want to get to that person, so you can really enjoy being in a relationship with someone who will appreciate you, who will love you, and want to be there.
I was going to also say, too, to your point, that some people aren't mature enough to see who you really are. And don't take that as a slight, take it as a compliment that there's somebody out there that does, or there's somebody out there that will see and are mature enough. Because if they're not mature enough to see who they are, who you are, if they're not mature enough to see who you are, they're not mature enough to help get you to the next level. They're not mature enough to handle you because they don't understand everything that comes with you. So in that, I think, again, nobody likes for relationships to end. No, but if there's so many factors that are off. If you do pros and cons, and you have to separate pros from cons, like, oh, we look good together, our babies will be cute, and all these superficial things that don't matter that you can have with somebody else, and get to the crux of it. If on a base level, it's kind of like saying, okay, these are the qualifications, and this person meets none of the qualifications, and you still say, well, I hope we can get married one day. I don't want to marry anybody that's not qualified to be with me. And qualified is not my check mark of my checklist of things. Oh, she got to be this, to this, to this, to this. But there's certain things inherent in you that I, as a man, need, and there are certain things that, um, if you don't have an understanding of me and how to approach me, how to relate to me, and how to get the best out of me, you're disqualified. And that has nothing to do with your height, your shoe size, your weight, your degrees. It has nothing to, and I think that we got to get off of these superficial lists. It's like, okay, this is my checklist for how I need a woman to be. This is how I need a woman to relate to me. That's my checklist. And thank God my wife meets every check, and she has proven herself over the years that, oh, yep, thank God, that's confirmation, confirmation, confirmation. She's still checking them down because, beyond the superficial things that people put value on, there's things that you actually need that you should put more value on in relationships.
And it all boils down to, how do you handle the person? Like,
absolutely.
Do you know what to do with that person? And we've talked about this in other videos. Like, that's what it all boils down to. Like, can I handle correctly? Am I going to abuse? I've always said that he is my gift. My husband is my gift, and I, will appreciate it and do right by it. You know what I mean? But yeah, just, you got to get on the same page. At the end of the day, you got to get on the same page. I can't stress it enough. It's important. It's important. And if you can't get on the same page and you're not married, then walk away. Because if you get married,
it's gonna get worse.
We're talking. We were married for 18 years.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine never being able to get on the same page. That's like being in a marriage by yourself.
That's abuse.
That's being a marriage. Yeah.
That's that, in a sense, that's self-inflicted abuse if you know it and continue to allow it to happen.
So I'm telling you, if you're engaged and you guys just can't never really get on the same page, work towards that before y'all say I do. And try to at least learn how to do that, because you're going to need to do that over and over and over and over and over again when you get married. Because there's going to be a lot of situations that's going to come up, and y'all can't be on two different paths every single time.
And having children is not going to put you on the same page.
No, it's not.
It's going to detour you.
It's going to challenge you
to force you to stay on the same page.
Stay on the same page.
Yeah.
Or it's going to do harm to the kids. So
absolutely.
All right. I hope y'all got some out of it. I hope y'all enjoyed this conversation. If you have any comments, leave them below, or anything that you do that helps you get on the same page or get on one accord with your significant other or spouse. Please share below in the comments, and we would love to hear from it. And until next time, we want you to what?
Jump in.
See you guys later. Bye.
Y'all take care.